What is up, guys? Welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be doing a video on the HeyBike Mars Fat Tire e-bike. We're going to do a full-on breakdown, comprehensive review for you guys, also taking this thing on the trails, testing out the brakes, seeing what the stopping power is on this bad boy, and talk about our foldable e-bikes, the future of e-bikes. So without further ado, let's get started. So foldable frames are nothing new in the cycling industry. Actually, they've been around a really long time. I've seen them in mountain bikes like early in the 80s. I've also seen them in BMX frames, and now I'm seeing them in electric bikes. And that's because they're trying to reach a tighter community of commuters that live in cities, that want to store their bikes in their trunks, store them in their closets if they live in like a studio apartment, because these things can be pretty cumbersome. And if you're looking for an electric bike like this, or if you have one, you already know these things take up a lot of space. I think more companies are taking on the foldable designs in different aspects. I've seen like foldable mountain bikes that are e-bikes and foldable, like I guess you would say, commuter cruisers for the city. So the foldable design is definitely a nice touch, and I think a lot of other companies are going to be doing it in the near future. In my personal opinion, it's one of my favorite ways to be able to store a bike, is fold it up and kind of have it out of the way. Now, speaking of folding up and having it out of the way, this thing came really well packaged. It came in a pretty small box. As you see here on the screen, the box actually was as it would be with it folded up. There is a certain way to be able to take bikes out of boxes, like I'm showing you right now on the screen. You don't just want to try to pick it up out of the box, because obviously that's the hardest way. You want to be able to slice the edges to be able to make sure that you can just fold that cardboard down. If you don't have a workplace to be able to work on your bike, that's a perfect workplace, because folding that box down leaves you a nice surface area to be able to lay your parts out, to be able to organize them, to better set them up on your bike. Now, with every electric bike I get, I like to talk about my unboxing experience and how well it was packaged and padded. This thing definitely held up to its own. Very well packaged, very well padded. I did not have any damage to it. I'm actually pretty shocked, especially with the way UPS and FedEx has been just throwing packages. Everybody out there thinks it's their Ace Ventura.
HDS, sir, and how are you this afternoon? Alrighty then. I have a package for you.
Sounds broken.
Most likely, sir. I'll bet it was something nice, though.
So the Mars has a top speed of 20 miles per hour, and I was actually able to achieve 23 miles per hour in this gravel terrain and come to a complete stop within 22 feet. Where I'm standing right now is where I locked on both the front and rear brakes, which I don't recommend you doing unless you're an experienced bike rider. Me, I come from a professional riding background with the BMX, transitioning into mountain biking and now electric bikes, so I have a really good understanding on how not only gravel but grass and all terrain react under tires. So I don't recommend doing that unless you're an experienced bike rider. So with that being said, the 20 to 22 feet is really good stopping distance in my opinion for mechanical disc brake. I do wish it was a hydraulic disc brake, but I don't know if that would even be possible with the foldable design that they have. If there are other bikes out there that have them, drop a comment below. If you guys have upgraded your foldable bike like this, drop a comment below and let me know what brake setup you have, because I will be doing it to this if it's possible. With that being said, these things stop on the dime, so let's keep hitting the trail. Now that we're back from the trail, let's talk about how the build experience was with this bike. This thing, surprisingly enough, was built 98% of the way. All I had to do was put on the pedals, put on the handlebars with an Allen key bolt wedge style design. If you guys aren't familiar with a wedge style design, what that means is as you tighten the Allen bolt, it wedges tighter and tighter into the steer tube, just like a bar end or an old school 80s, I guess they would say gooseneck back in the day on a BMX bike. The tires were pretty much inflated up to what I wanted, about 30 to 35 PSI. I did have to charge the battery for about 3 or 4 hours in order to get a full charge. I put the seat post combo into the frame to my ideal riding height, and I was good to go. That's one of my favorite things about this bike, is the fact that this thing was 98% built when I got it. So I literally had to do nothing but put this thing on charge and get ready to have a ride. Now let's talk about the overall specs of this bike. You already know that this frame is foldable. Let's talk about the materials that this frame is made out of. Now this frame is made out of aluminum. The welds are definitely pretty beefy on this bad boy. And like I said earlier, the hinge design is one of my favorite features about this bike. Breaking this bike down or building it back up is really, really simple. If you need to put this in the back of a car, SUV, makes it even simpler with its foldable design. Alright, so there is an easier way to fold down the frame and fold it back open. You're going to come around to the non-drive side of the bike, which is the left side of the bike. The right side of the bike is the drive side. You're going to put your body weight up against the side of the frame and the seat. That way, when you're ready to fold the frame down, you can take on that weight. You're going to come over here to the lever, push this to open, reach your fingers under, pulling till you hear that pop. Now, it's not going to fold open or shut and fall on you. You're going to end up squeezing the brakes. What I end up doing is I squeeze only the rear brake. I start to pull on the front end while pushing my body weight on the frame. You see it start to open right there? Now you can start to feather the front wheel, as in feather the brakes, in order to kind of control the balance of the weight all the way down to the ground. Now in order to bring that bike back up, you're going to step between the two tires with one leg. So what I do is I put my body weight right here. I reach forward, grabbing the grips and the brakes. I pull the bike all the way up to where it's at its position where it would be when you're riding. I let go of the rear brake while holding the front, holding onto the seat. Then I pull the rear like this. See how the front end stays where it's supposed to? And it gets right to that pivot point. Shut the lever and you're good to ride. So let's first talk about the cockpit area. The handlebars are a nice wide feel. You can adjust them up and down and the back sweep as well with the quick release mechanisms that are on the neck as well as the handlebar. Now the grips are a very nice feel, and they are pretty common in the e-bike industry right now, and they definitely feel really good when riding. You'll see that these are more of a faux leather with a nice stitching on them. And moving on into the controller setup, you'll see you have 3 levels of pedal assist. Now these 3 levels of pedal assist are easy to get to with this plus and minus symbols you see here. Powering it on is in the center, so you can see all of what you need to see on the display. Very clear with this backlit display. Now you do have the 2 buttons on your left grip to be able to either turn on the headlight or honk the horn. Now moving on to the right side of the grip, you'll see a nice thumb throttle. Now in my opinion, I think thumb throttles are the way to go because it's really easy to get stuck into a whiskey throttle. What that means is if your body weight is thrown back too far and you're stuck in that twisted position, it's really hard to let go without actually falling off the back of the bike. Now with a thumb throttle, it's only your thumb pushing that down, so it's really easy to let that thumb up and keep a tight grip on the handlebar. Now the brakes are pretty good in my opinion, but they're mechanical. I think that hydraulic disc brakes are the way to go because as you start to get faster and faster on bikes, you want to match that speed with great braking. Now, I think that HeyBike could probably upgrade their brakes to hydraulic disc brakes pretty easy while also keeping that price point just as low as it is right now. Now moving on down, these handlebars fold down with this lever, and that is a really good touch with a foldable design. Really keeps it nice and minimalistic. Now moving on down further, you have this adjustable shock. You can lock it out or open it up, and you can control the rebound on the other side. So that makes it a nice softer ride or a firmer ride depending on the terrain that you're riding on. The fact that these fenders are installed on the bike is a huge plus because that can be such a pain in the butt when you're getting a bike, installing the fenders, trying to figure out which one goes where and doing it correctly. And this definitely keeps the mud off your pants and the gravel out of your eyes if you end up popping up any gravel on the path. The fat tires are always a nice touch, a really good feel on these fat tire e-bikes. It gives you extra cushion on the trail, makes you really feel like you can ride over anything with treads like this. Now moving on to the bottom bracket, you have a 45 tooth chainring on the front with foldable pedals to make this even sleeker and more minimalistic, as we talked about earlier. The foldable pedal design is one of the few that I've actually ever seen in the e-bike industry. Now as we look back a little bit further, we get to the battery, the life of the bike. This is a 48 volt 12.5 amp hour lithium battery. That means you'll get 48 miles of range with pedal assist and 37 miles of just throttle only. Now the max payload capacity of this bike is 330 pounds, and the total weight you can put on the rack with saddlebags is 100 pounds. This bike is not waterproof. It is IPX4 rated, which means it can get wet with sprinkles of rain here and there, but you cannot fully submerge this bike at all. But the 500 watt motor actually does the job in my opinion, and I think it competes with a lot of other e-bikes out there in this price range. So this is pretty much the most bang for your buck for under $1,000. Now as you see here, the battery comes out pretty easy. There's a lever underneath the seat. You pull that lever, and when you pull that lever, the seat folds forward, allowing you to be able to have more access to that battery. You have to turn the key, push it in, and keep turning to be able to unlock the battery from the frame and pull it up out of its slide. Now sliding it back in is definitely a little bit harder than you would think. You have to really pay attention to the track where the battery meets the track on the frame to be able to make sure that that thing slides in seamlessly. Overall, in my opinion, this is one of the most comfortable bikes to ride on and off the trail, and very well balanced, especially for being a foldable bike. Riding with no hands on this, I know you're not supposed to, but in my opinion, this is actually pretty well balanced, and being that I'm going over 22 miles per hour with no hands, says a lot for itself. So in my opinion, the HeyBike Mars foldable e-bike is probably one of my favorite ones in this price range. So being under $1,000, this is a killer deal. I'll put the link in the description below if you guys are interested in it. If you already have a foldable bike or the Mars, you've done some upgrades, put a couple comments below. I'd definitely like to know what you did. If you did the hydraulic setup, I definitely want to know how you did it. So with that being said, look out for more videos with this bad boy here in the next couple days, as well as that video with urban style riding that we talked about doing through the city to be able to teach you guys the safest way to be able to get around the city, downstairs, off of curbs, you name it, we're gonna do it. So with that being said, if you guys have any other suggestions for future videos, put a comments below. If you guys like this video, drop a like. If you love it, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.